Now, I don't know why they did this, why they chose me. There's been plenty of assignments working with the guys under competent, experienced leadership. But I personally have never led a team of any kind. Now they give me 7 personnel, along with 2 dogs. I'm to lead them through a portion of the Barrens to the salt waterfall. Okay. I can do that. Youngsters, some of them. Pretty much children. Some people I know. Some folks who were family. Originally, I was instructed to head towards the salt waterfall, rolling in 2 half-tracks or armored personnel carriers, whatever the powers that be chose to supply me with. They carry 6 bodies each. But we've got 4 people each and 1 dog each. Only 10 of us total. I did have some say-so in who came with me, who I can trust to have my back. Instinctively, off the top, I chose Gerald, Jacob, and Corinne, right off the top of my head. But then it became something else. The day before we were to leave, Sherry was to accompany me so she could pick up her TRAJAN 12 that she'd put in for maintenance. Yeah, the robot tank she hid out in the desert, out in the Barrens, is really in for maintenance. What? Who gives a tune-up to tanks these days? Okay, wait a minute. All right, I get it now. This is a training exercise. I'm in charge of the team, while Sherry and Gerald mentor, direct, and hold me accountable. I can accept that. Until the truth came out. We obtained the tank. We are to head sharp north over the mountain range. We're not going anywhere near that salt waterfall. Why? Are we at war? Or are we just trying to start one? Our instructions, my original instructions, were to come around back of the in-between clan by going over the mountain through a path that it said was not worth the loss of life. Then we park it. Even though we know full well that Ava is bringing us 40 head of cattle, along with a wagon filled with handmade toothbrushes and homemade soap. We know that. Or do we? Isn't that going to look like betrayal? Is this really the right move? I'm beginning to understand Great Uncle and his little rants. Lieutenant Redford and his side eye. Mom and her sly smile. These people aren't liars nor untrustworthy. It's just that we are all dealing with what's in front of us. I'm definitely going to play my part. We're going to live through this if I have any say-so in the matter. But it's one thing to potentially start armed conflict with our positioning. But for me, getting over the mountain, from all of my studies while working at the educational center, we may not be able to live through parking it in the mountains. Those mountains are a curse. There are people who live out there, not connected to any clan at all. They don't speak any intelligible language anymore. Feral people. They've been out there so long. This may not end well for any of us. It had been following us for like 3 days now. We knew it wasn't a man, yet no one could really get a beat on him. He always stayed too far away. After a while, Jacob figured out it was Bobby. He was just following us, staying out of range, yet close enough to see exactly what we're dealing with day to day. It didn't take long for him to start hanging with us during dinner. Bobby would drag a carcass onto one of the half-tracks and eat it, all the while watching us eat and party. He was a part of us. Nameless had sent him to watch our six. Bobby's on the team. What? 8 people, 2 half-tracks, plus 2 war dogs, Sister Sari and her TRAJAN 12, and Bobby the hyena? This is one hell of a team. Now we need a name. The more we felt comfortable with Bobby, the more comfortable he was with us, which is good because, in its entirety, it takes just under 4 days' time to reach the backside at the base of the mountain, and another 2 to 3 days going over it. It's not particularly steep, but cold, icy in some spots. The terrain itself sucks, and then there's the threat of humans. Problem people, for the most part, live in the forest on the other side as you're heading down towards the valley. I'm so glad I was assigned to the library educational center for a month. The ability to research and ask questions has changed me. You wouldn't believe what I've read about some of these folks. One story, I don't remember how old it was, but the guy spoke as if he had resigned to accept that this is just the way it is. He said something like, early one morning, you hear a scream. Definitely human. As you bolt out of your cabin, you can't help but see your livestock are all running loose. Wait a minute. Is that a man running with a goat under his arm as if it's a toddler? Now, those were his words, not mine. Some of these people are animals. They steal livestock and sometimes children and women. Some are said to be cannibals. Allegedly, in air quotes. It's been reported that there are completely different kinds out there. Multiple clans of their own, I suppose. There's been a ton of inbreeding. Listen, all I'm saying is the documentation that I was able to browse paints a very scary picture. I don't want to go in there. Not the mountains. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. What have I got myself into now? Wise men once say, it's hard to believe that there are people who are like that until you meet people who are like that. We've reached the base of the mountain on the backside. My heart is apprehensive, but my mind says push forward. We have a job to do, and my team is looking to me to get things done. Constance, one of the team, has loads of questions, to the point of being annoying. Yet, she's not wrong for doing so. Perhaps it's the timing.
Mentored by Mom, she's smart and capable, good with weapons, and very good at finding edible vegetables in the wild for food or for medicine. Oh, she's also a trained veterinarian. Back home, Constance and Corinne don't really like each other. But out here in the field, there's no time for that. I appreciate their professionalism. They laugh a lot together. Thank God I hate female drama. Turns out Jacob is a really good driver. He knows every inch of half-track too and understands how to work it, depending on the terrain. Corinne is his gunner. David and Clive, along with War Dog Brock, are ready for whatever comes. I hope. With me in half-track one, there's Gerald, driving, Constance, Nomohu is the gunner, who just happens to be Ava's boy. Also, Sister Sherry and Ward Dog Cosmo. Sherry's Trajan 12 is clamped to the top of the half-track, folded up as if it's a turtle or an armadillo. Bobby the massive hyena follows us in the shadows. I'm blessed to have this team. Obviously, the higher we go, the colder it gets. As long as we stay in the half-track, the weather isn't so bad. Bobby keeps up with us and doesn't seem to be fazed by the weather too much. Sometimes he'll see a rabbit or a fox in the snow and bolts towards it. Just a snack. We don't have to worry about keeping him fed, although he does like peanut butter cookies. When Corinne pops the box open, Bobby turns into an overexcited puppy. It's funny and heartwarming. About 30 hours from the base, we've reached the mountain summit. This is one hell of a view. This alone was well worth the trip. Absolutely stunning. We all soaked it in. To my far right, in the distance, I can see days of empty space for miles and miles. To my left in the valley, much closer, I can see the camp of the In-Between clan. I say camp because it looks like a nomadic tribe put it together. We found an overhanging ridge and broke camp for the night. While doing so, Sherry sent out 3 drones from her tank in 3 different directions, about 1,200 feet up. Then she came to the group with a laptop to show us something. The 3 drones and her tank create a 3D mapping system. You can see everything in the forest, including animals and people, either by mapping system, direct camera, or heat signature. This tool really made me smile. This part of the trip is what scares me. Never even been here before, and I hate these mountains already. Early the next morning, we got moving, headed downhill for about 5 hours. We were on alert, treading carefully. David, Clive, and Constance were on quads rolling beside us, hunting game, picking mushrooms and edible vegetation. As usual with Bobby in the shadows, he comes back to us soaking wet. He'd found water, so we make our way through a clearing, following Bobby to a freshwater creek. There we made camp for lunch. I guess we were too relaxed. Constance came up to me in half-track 1, totally in shock. Her face ashen, and said, It took him. It came out of nowhere. What? I asked. With her eyes glazed, she calmly said he walked out of the forest to the edge of our camp, picked up David with one hand, and just walked away with him. What? Who is he? I asked. At once, I heard Gerald over the radio.
He's coming back. Eyes up, he's coming back.
Standing up to look through the viewer, I hear myself yelling, "Wow, that guy is way too big to be a man."
Shoot it, now! Shoot it!
After a second and a half of everyone stunned in disbelief at what we were seeing, Sherry, No More, Corinne, and Clive unload full blast. Sherry in her TRAJAN 12 with Corinne and Nomo on half tracks, manning the 60 caliber guns, and crazy Clive alone out front, as if he's Doc Savage, man of bronze. They were pretty much laying waste to the landscape. Meanwhile, Gerald, Jacob, and the war dogs are running into the forest, attempting to flank the beast on his left. The entire time, Gerald is heard over the radio.
It's fast. It's fast. It's really fast. Okay, he's gone. He's gone.
At that note, I ordered a ceasefire and retreat back to camp to regroup. I said ceasefire. Sherry was angry. She started to follow it in her tank. I ordered her to stand down. We don't know what's in the forest, and we didn't come here for this in the first place. But Sherry was hot. I requested she launch drones and survey from our current position. After about 20 minutes, Sherry picked up movement, heading our way. Something much larger than man. We stood armed and ready. This time we have some idea of where it is, using the drones as eyes. Steady. Hold your fire until I say, were my instructions. Sherry called out as it breached the tree line. It was Bobby, covered in blood. 5 arrows in his hindquarters and something in his mouth. David's jacket, soaked in blood. Oh no, we've lost David. Stunned sadness overwhelmed us. After a few minutes of silence, Constance led Bobby to a private spot where she could nurse his wounds. Sherry kept her eyes on a mapping system. Nomo and Corinne remained armed and ready. The dogs walked the perimeter. The rest of us, Jacob, Gerald, Clive, and myself, stared in disbelief at the bloody jacket. My thoughts were all over the place. It's hard to believe we've lost David. I like that guy. You know, I had no idea God made men that size. What just happened? I want off this mountain. Whose bright-ass idea was this, anyway?